Annual financial framework, and I will introduce people as soon as we get the panel organised. Okay, thank you. Just give us a few seconds. Once again, thank you very much. Again, I congratulate all of the members for your assiduousness in terms of keeping time and in terms of managing the opinion so far. It's so important. First of all, we're talking about the next multi-annual financial framework. We have here Commissioner Piotr Serafin, European Commissioner for Budget, Anti-Fraud and Public Administration, and I really thank you for giving us the time. I'd also like to welcome Carla Tavares, Member of the European Parliament, for your time, and thank you for being here. Again, you know a great deal about this subject, I know that, so thank you for being here. And of course, Professor Enrico Giovannini, former Italian minister, who will address us remotely. Apologies. So he will come in remotely. So I would like to just open the debate very quickly by simply saying all of you are welcome. It's that time of the European calendar when we know the MFF will take a lot of time across all of the institutions. It is not just a negotiation over figures, it is a negotiation over the future direction of the EU. The Commission has requested the EESC's opinion on MFF proposals, with the overarching opinions on the MFF on own resources to be adopted in January. This debate with you, Commissioner, will help sharpen our positioning and I hope inform all of us of the various issues affecting this subject and indeed the committee's final demands. Alongside these core opinions, 20 additional opinions on sectoral proposals will be discussed and voted on. The EC's political demands will therefore be available early in the legislative process, ensuring that our voices shapes the debate from the start. As President of the EESC, I reaffirm our conviction that Europe needs a very strong, ambitious and forward-looking MFF. It must be a strategic instrument capable of delivering the Union's objectives while safeguarding inclusiveness, partnership, democratic participation and cohesion. The Commission's July and September proposals go in the right direction by streamlining the instruments and increasing flexibility in response to Europe's multi-layered crisis. However, flexibility must be balanced with robust guarantees of transparency, inclusiveness and accountability. In my statement of November the 5th, I voiced concerns about centralising key funds at national level, especially in cohesion, agriculture and fisheries. Such centralisation very much risks, and I repeat that word, subsidiarity, trust and long-term convergence, which could mean less Europe. The design of the national regional partnership plans will be central, and these plans must maintain a strong link between EU governance and regional realities. The involvement of communities, social partners, civil society is a precondition for success. It really is not an optional extra. We want that involvement, not just on paper, especially after a rather unsatisfactory experience of civil society with the Recovery and Resilience Facility. The EESC is already deeply engaged through hearings, high-level debates, interinstitutional exchanges with the Danish Council Presidency. I recently participated in the Parliament's Regional Affairs ready for a debate on the MFF demonstrating our upstream involvement. The decision taken in the coming years will define Europe's capacity to act until 2034 and beyond. On financing, the Committee has consistently supported giving the Union adequate financial autonomy, including balanced package of new own resources. This is crucial, and it's crucial in terms of the EU thinking of the next generational EU debt requiring stable and predictable finances. Recent debates have shown the importance of constructive cooperation between all of us, including the Parliament, the Commission and all of the institutions. The core message is that participatory, inclusive, cohesion-driven MFF is essential to building a union of opportunity, security and reliance. So with that, I would like to end my opening of the debate, and straight away I will look for a statement of 7 minutes to our Commissioner Piotr Serafin. The floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear members of the European Economic and Social Committee. Thank you for the invitation to this debate, which I believe is going to be lively. I know that you are working already on your opinion on the MFF, which we appreciate, and I do hope that this debate will also contribute to your reflection and the outcome of your deliberations. Let me start these short introductory remarks with maybe a reflection on where do we come from with our proposal. And I think it is important to take note of the fact that the world around us has changed, and changed quite dramatically since we last debated long-term budget in 2019-2020. And we also need to look into the realities on the ground today. And that is why we are, and I think more and more Europeans are aware, that when it comes to the competitiveness of our continent, more and more we are lagging behind vis-à-vis our global competitors, the United States and China. This is clearly one of the contexts that we have to take into account. And that is the reason why we put so much emphasis on the competitiveness. You have just debated the European Competitiveness Fund. This is indeed the reflection of that conclusion. The second context that we also need to bear in mind is related to security in all its dimensions, including defense. And this is, again, the most stark change since the debates we had back then, 7 years ago. And that is not, therefore, not a coincidence that the spendings in the MFF for the until 2034 on that specific area we propose to increase them quite significantly. But we do it, and that's what I would like to stress here, because we know that European nations, not only members of NATO, but in particular members of NATO, they are going to increase their national spendings quite significantly. It is not our ambition to replace them. It is our ambition to contribute in a way which will guarantee that part of the spendings, a significant part of the spending, is translated into innovation and jobs on the European continent, that we do not follow the pattern that we know still today. Increase in military spendings, defence-related spendings, means transfer of European taxpayers' money outside of the European continent. And that will be the role of the EU budget, to incentivise production and innovation on the European continent, and to encourage also cooperation between European defence industries. So these are new elements that has to be reflected in the priorities. But in the proposal of July, we are not forgetting about the importance of the policies that have proved its usefulness since many decades, actually. And here, of course, I refer to both cohesion policy and common agriculture policy. We propose a new framework for their implementation, the framework of the national and regional partnership plans, but the objectives stay, and they will continue to play an important role also in the future. You mentioned, Mr. President, the question of flexibility. This is, again, one of the issues, one of the lessons that we have to draw, including from the current MFF. We need to have a European budget that is in a position to react not only to crisis situations, but also to changing priorities that we have experienced in the last few years. Today, more than 90% of the EU spending is pre-allocated from the very outset. That's what we would like to change. But indeed, we are also aware that flexibility comes with uncertainty. And I think the real issue is how to find the right balance between flexibility and predictability, because the predictability for the final beneficiaries is extremely important. And we were making those concessions already, concessions for predictability, already at the point when the proposal was drafted. Look at the income support for farmers. We have ring-fenced 293 billion euros of EU budget for direct income support for farmers for those incoming 7 years. After the discussion with the European Parliament, including with present here Rapporteur Carla Tavares, we have also introduced a target of 100 billion euros to be spent on the objectives of the European Social Fund. We have also, in the context of cohesion policy, proposed predictability in the form of ring-fenced resources for the less developed regions, 260 billion euros. So that would be my comment on the predictability. Overall, we believe that we have proposed an ambitious budget of 2 trillion euros in nominal prices. What you should remember as well, that as of 1st of January 2028, the European Union budget will be there not only to service NGEU-related debt, but also to start the process of repayment of this debt. So every year we put aside 24 billion euros for that purpose, to service the debt and to pay back the principal. This is the obligation which is on the European budget. We have to be prepared for that. And as you said, Mr. President, and I really appreciate your words, your support of this committee for the greater financial autonomy of the European budget. That is reflected also in our proposal. I should even say it is reflected not only because of our convictions or your convictions, but because of necessity. We are living at a time of fiscal consolidation in many of our member states, and therefore also it is for the European Union, for the European Commission to reflect how to finance the ambitious budget for the European Union, and that is exactly the reason why we have put this proposal of new own resources, five of them. I have no time to go into details of all of them, but I can tell you that on some of those additional resources, both the Parliament and the Council, they are working already now. And I'm referring, for example, to the Customs Code, where the deliberations are very much advanced, and I do hope that we might see already next year the abolition of de minimis rule for deliveries to Europe at the level of below the threshold of 150 euros. I also would hope that handling fees for parcels, small parcels, which are flooding these days European continent. Last year, 4.6 billion parcels came to Europe from outside. This year, I don't want to give the number, but it will be much more. So that could be one of those additional sources of revenue. Now, Mr. President, and that very shortly, since we tabled a proposal in July, we had quite intensive dialogue with the European Parliament, and that dialogue has resulted in a proposal which was presented to the so-called 324 committee. So the President of the European Parliament, the President of the Council, committee convened by the President of the Commission, which I believe goes in the direction of what was expected by the European Parliament, which, based on what I have heard from you, Mr. President, might also be interesting for this committee. Indeed, we went further into the direction of predictability. Predictability when it comes to the common agriculture policy, predictability on investments in the rural areas. This was one of the elements which was very hotly debated in the European Parliament, but also in the Council, that in the proposal that we have put on the table, in a sense, we gave too much leeway to the Member States, and therefore we need to make a step back. We need to make sure that the rural areas, investments in the rural areas, are also guaranteed in the future MFF, which is, according to our proposal, the case. We propose 10% of unallocated amounts from the national plans to be dedicated to that objective. And the second important dimension of the debate was related to the regions and their role in the national and regional partnership plans. I have to say that if you would look into the national and regional partnership plans regulation, you will see that to a large extent this is cut and paste from the current cohesion model, with shared management, with partnership principle, with a possibility for the member states to have regional authorities as managing authorities. But we also understand the anxiety which is partly driven by the experience of the RRF, and therefore we did propose additional safeguards, first of all related to the guarantee that the regions will be in a position, those having regional programs, to interact, to negotiate directly with the Commission. This is a sort of a paradox. We have the regions that would prefer to talk to the Commission than to the national governments. But this is a logic of the cohesion, the regional policy. So that's what we have proposed. We have also put in place certain guarantees for other than less developed regions. I refer here to transition regions, to developed regions, safeguards that we accept the fact that there could be a reduction of resources for those regions, but if that reduction of resources goes beyond 25%, it has to be based on objective parameters. It has to be explained and justified in a proper way with objective elements. And now one last point. I'm not sure whether how much time I did use. So I would like to, being here, I would like also to make a reference to the program Agora EU. And I would like to, because I know that many of you represent civil society organizations, I would like to reassure you that in the context of the next MFF, the newly reinforced Agora program will play a key role to ensure that participatory democracy in Europe still thrives. Agora EU will bring together the Commission's activities in the field of culture, media and rights and values, and the budget for these actions, according to our proposals, should be doubled compared to the current MFF. In that context, let me also mention the rule of law, which will continue to be the driving, the key principle also for the next MFF. We will keep in place the conditionality regulation. We will make sure that the rule of law and the Charter of Fundamental Rights is reflected also in the milestones and targets of the national and regional partnership plans, but there is one novelty. We also propose so-called smart conditionality. Now, if the money are blocked subject to the conditionality regulation, they are decommitted. According to our proposal, part of them can actually serve, can be reused and can serve, in particular, Agora program, strengthening the civil society, which we know how important role it plays in the system of checks and balances in Europe and for the protection of the rule of law. So I will stop here, Mr. President, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I really appreciate the honesty and the candidness which you have given this presentation, and I'm very optimistic that we will have a lot of discussions on this matter. I would now like to also invite you to hear from Carla Tavares, Member of the European Parliament. She's not just an MEP, she is extremely expert in this area and has worked very hard in this area. I know that from reading about you. So we are so honoured to have you here. So again, I'll say there's 7 minutes, so do your best.
I will do my best. Thank you, President, members of the committee, Commissioner Serafin. So in the beginning, you will hear that maybe we have different points of view in some areas of the next MFF. But it doesn't mean that we are not committed in work together, and I think it's very important. Of course, in the beginning, in some areas, the Parliament and the Commission is in the same line, but we still work strong and still work together. So, first, I would like to thank the European Economic and Social Committee for the invitation to be here today. As you know, the European Parliament has said since the very beginning that in a fast-changing world where people rightly expect more from the Union and where the Union is confronted with a growing number of crises, like Mr. Commissioner said now, the next MFF must be endowed with increased resource compared to the 21-27 period, moving away from this historically restrictive self-imposed level of the 1% of GNI. So we regret that the European Commission, instead of presenting a genuinely ambitious proposal, hides behind the headline figure of the 2 trillion in current prices.
Is there a problem with translation?
Oh, I need to speak more slowly.
No, I don't know if the French is coming through.
Sorry.
Just hold on a second. Do we have some? It may well be French. Is there any other language affected? Sorry about this.
No problem.
Okay, we will.
It's my fault, sorry.
I hope it works. Okay, thumbs up. My apologies.
No problem.
But you're doing really well.
So, about size, I return to the big discussion of the size of the next MFF. So we regret that the European Commission, instead of presenting a genuinely ambitious proposal, hides behind the headline figure of 2 trillion in current price, which is reality amounts to only 1,763 trillions in 2025 constant prices, equal to 1.26% of EU GNI, with...
It is not working in French, is that correct? So, will we continue?
English, more or less. French is impossible for me. Sorry. boycott to MFF.
We just need to find out what is happening, and it's important that... Are you saying it's working? It seems to be working. My apologies.
No problem.
We'll continue, Carla, and again,
No
my
problem.
apologies.
No problem.
Okay, off we go.
Okay. Equal to 1.25% EU GNI with 0.11% being allocated to the Next Generation EU repayments. This results in a symbolic increase for EU programs of less than 1.01 percentage points of GNI, effectively freezing the budget in real terms. In addition to this freeze, the phasing out of the Recovery and Resilience Facility, RRF, will further sustainability reduce to the Union's overall spending power. The Parliament believes that this proposed level will not enable the Union to deliver on its commitments or respond to the significant geopolitical challenge ahead. We need a budget that enables the Union to address major challenges, including the return of large-scale warfare in the Union's immediate neighbourhood, a highly challenging economic and social backdrop, a competitiveness gap, and the worsening climate and biodiversity crisis. We were never on board with the merging of different policies in one plan for Member States, the national and regional plans, which generate significant uncertainty regarding funding predictability for final beneficiaries, and we think that the next MFF must focus on financing European public goods with discernible added value compared to the national spending. The approach followed would fragment the single market, create unfair competitive advantages, and erode the principle of the solidarity that underpins European integration. Besides this, the significant reduction in funding in Heading 1 threatens to undermine EU policies enshrined in the treaties and the Union's objectives of strengthening its economic, social and territorial cohesion of the Union. The Parliament has called for simplification, but not in a way that sacrifices transparency and controls under the pretense of the efficiency, compromising programme quality and democratic accountability, and undermining Parliament's role as the budgetary and discharge authority. The Parliament is committed to securing the necessary transparency mechanisms to fulfil its role as the guardian of the citizens' interests, which is vital to safeguard public trust in the EU. On what concerns flexibility, we recognise it is needed, but that this must not compromise long-term policy objectives, funding predictability or Parliament's prerogatives. We stand ready to work constructively and engage in meaningful negotiations with the Council and Commission to deliver a long-term budget that addresses the Union's needs. So I think it's important maybe to share our calendar, because I think it's important. We finish our draft report into this week, 26th of November. Now the draft interim report go to the translation to be possible to send to the committees. We sent this yesterday. To start the work in the different committees and in joint committees. In the 11th of December, we will have our first discussion in the Budget Committee. The committees need to do our work, and we think it will be possible to have the final discussion in Budget in the beginning of April, 8 or 9 of April, to be possible to vote in plenary in May. So some things I think it's very important. Since the beginning, and sorry my colleague Siegfried Mursen, it's not possible for him to be present today because he has another meeting outside Belgium, we try to work together with pro-European political groups. We think this is a very, very important moment to our citizens and to the European Union. So we'll try to valorize all the times what we have in approach between these political groups. And it's not easy. We know if you need to vote the consensus to the MFF today, the votes that we had in May 2026 are not enough to have a positive consensus in the plenary, in the Parliament. So we try all the days and all the moments work together with Committee of Regions, with this committee, because we know in the end of the day it's much more stronger what we have in common than what we have and separate us in this work. And of course we are always available. We have a lot of discussions, I think very constructive discussions. We have since the beginning a lot of concerns with national and regional plans. It was possible to give, I think, first big step with the Commission, with the letter and with the new lines from the Commission, and we are completely, the Parliament are completely committed to do the best we can do in the Parliament, and of course to work with the Commission. And Commission Serafin, I know your life is not easy, but I would like to thank you very much, because in all the moments, and sometimes it's not easy, we have completely different position. You are a great defender from the citizens and from the EU, and I think these moments we are very critical, all the moments, but I think we need to have the capacity to valorize what we have in a positive way. Thank you, Commissioner.
Again, thank you very much, Carla, for that. And also I note very strongly...
Sorry. Oh.
I note very strongly, and I welcome your inclusion of EESC and indeed the Committee of Regions and others involved in this, and I know the Commissioner has made that point as well. And I think it's really important because the MFF is such an extraordinary engine in terms of Europe and where it's going and where its future is. So I really welcome those interventions. I'd now like to ask so really I'm talking now about a general debate with EESC members. So I think that's what I have on my agenda. So we have here on the floor, and you'll see in a moment. So it is no surprise that we go to our ECHO President, Elena Alexandra Calistro. Elena, you have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I am here. I'm hiding. Thank you so much for this conversation. And to be honest, I'm really glad you proposed such a transformation in the architecture of the MFF, because instead of everybody talking about whether in Brussels, we're all talking about the MFF, whether we are pro or against the mega funds. So this is a nice change. Joke aside, I think that indeed we cannot escape with business as usual when it comes to the MFF. And we need to adapt to, as you mentioned, Commissioner, to a very changed reality. But to this end, I think that my intervention can be summarized as such. We want civil society to be part of this conversation, and I must commend the European Parliament, the 2 rapporteurs, for involving us from the very beginning, even from January, in the conversations, and also the Polish presidency had a conversation at the very beginning with regards to how the MFF should look like. However, I think that when it comes to involving civil society, ensuring transparency, accountability, participation, we must make sure that the national level will do the same. We need not only a regional check, but also a civil society check, and not only here in Brussels, but also in the member states. And this is up to you to design and to make sure that civil society is part in the design, programming, then in the implementation and in the monitoring of the MFF. Besides this, I think that it's important for us to be very, very honest. As Mrs. Tavares also mentioned, we have a lot of ambitions as a EU, but we also need to match those ambitions with the right resources, to put our money where our mouth is, and to make sure that the challenges we face are actually matched by the existing resources. So, Commissioner, dear Mrs. Tavares, my appeal to you is the same one. Involve civil society early and across the entire process. I thank you for this.
Well done. Well done, Elena, and thank you for that. I now go to Katrina Zarina, who has 1 minute. Katrina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Here I am, in the middle. Dear all, a truly ambitious and well-structured next MFF is essential if the EU is to sustain growth, drive innovation and remain globally competitive. And yet the current proposal raises concerns. As the EESC rapporteur on the new own resource package, I must underline that Union are only at the beginning of this process, and we all know that. Still, some elements, the core proposal in particular, remain insufficiently explained and not yet understood by many stakeholders. And I must say that Europe cannot afford an own resource debate that is technically complex on the paper, but politically sensitive in reality. We need greater transparency, meaningful engagement with civil society, and firm commitment to shaping workable, future-proof financing solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I now give the floor to Javier Dozaret. Again, I think you have 3 minutes.
Speak Spanish. Gracias, presidente. Gracias, señor Serafin, por su intervención. Lamento tener que expresar en mis palabras una opinión crítica sobre la propuesta de marco financiero. En primer lugar, pienso que el volumen de gasto no va a permitir ayudar significativamente a reducir el enorme déficit de inversión que tiene la Unión Europea y que tampoco va a poder reducirse con unos presupuestos nacionales sometidos a las restricciones de los planes fiscales. A mi juicio, en segundo lugar, la decisión de fusionar los fondos destinados a la PAC y las políticas de cohesión no es correcta. Se puede flexibilizar lo que es homogéneo. Yo creo que, en el fondo, lo que esconde es el deseo de disimular el recorte respecto a los presupuestos vigentes de la suma de todos esos fondos y transferir la responsabilidad de recortar a los gobiernos nacionales. De paso, se renacionalizan las políticas y el camino de la renacionalización de las políticas no me parece correcto. El aumento de los gastos de defensa es necesario, pero creo que ni por ReArEU ni lo que está en los presupuestos se hace claramente en la construcción de una política de defensa común europea y de una fuerte industria de defensa. Y, por otra parte, no creo que sea compatible con los compromisos adquiridos en los acuerdos de julio con Estados Unidos de compra de armamento a los Estados Unidos. Desde el punto de vista de los ingresos, ¿por qué motivo, le preguntaría al señor Serafin, se renunció a implantar el impuesto a los servicios digitales? Sabemos que fue por una concesión a Donald Trump en el proceso de negociación del acuerdo comercial. ¿Mereció realmente la pena por los resultados? Y esa renuncia a la autonomía regulatoria ha producido que hace pocos días el secretario de Comercio de los Estados Unidos, Howard Lutnick, amenazara con nuevos aranceles si no modificamos la legislación europea sobre el mundo digital y sobre la inteligencia artificial. ¿Hemos respondido de alguna manera? Vamos a responder. Creo que se aceptó al mismo tiempo, en silencio, la propuesta del G7 de excluir a las multinacionales norteamericanas del impuesto mínimo de 15% sobre los beneficios. Todo eso conforma un paquete más el impuesto core a las empresas europeas que puede considerarse, algunos lo ven así, como un paquete de dumping fiscal contra las empresas europeas y los trabajadores europeos. Señor Serafin, yo solo termino diciendo una cosa. Para hacer frente a la gravísima situación geopolítica y geoeconómica que tiene que hacer frente la Unión Europea, se necesitan unos presupuestos robustos, más Europa y un liderazgo de la Comisión Europea. No tenemos ninguna de estas tres cosas, lamentablemente.
Thank you very much, Javier. Well said. And we now go to Inyat Sibian. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, President. And thank you, Commissioner, for mentioning Agora EU program, because I would like to talk about the Commission proposal for Agora EU program and Justice program. Tomorrow, our first opinion on the debate, it will be on this subject. And we would like to welcome the proposal of these programs, which put democracy, rights, and the rule of law at the heart of the next EU long-term budget. We are also in favor of keeping to the ambitious funding level proposed. You mentioned doubling the budget on the next budget. So this is an important signal that you are sending to organized civil society in the Union. Nevertheless, we have 3 key messages in our document. First, a vibrant civil society is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a resilient democracy. We call for advocacy to be explicitly recognized, having in mind the discussions on this type of activities, focusing on advocacy in the European Parliament. But also we would like to see more explicit the operational grants to be authorized across all 3 parts of the Agora EU program, meaning culture, media, and EU values, and also co-funding, higher level of funding for beneficiaries that they don't have the possibilities to bring co-funding. Secondly, we would like to draw to your attention the fact that there are current funding imbalances between countries and regions. And thirdly, we would like to reinstate the structured civil dialogue under the new Agora EU program, as it was under the current program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inyat. Thank you for that. And I would like to go to Arnaud Puchet-Desac. And Arnaud, you have 1 minute. There you are.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Commissaire, nous commençons par une proposition budgétaire. Il faut bien commencer par un bout. Eh bien, moi, je vais vous répondre aussi par une réponse politique. Mais quelques secondes sur la proposition budgétaire. Concernant le secteur que je représente ici, l'agriculture, vous nous proposez 20% de moins que l'enveloppe précédente. Si on avait suivi l'inflation, il faudrait faire 13% de plus. Donc cette proposition est extrêmement inquiétante pour notre profession. Deuxièmement, vous augmentez la subsidiarité et vous détruisez la politique agricole commune en donnant la possibilité aux États de cofinancer différemment la politique agricole commune. Entre les États riches et les États pauvres, les États qui aiment l'agriculture et ceux qui ne l'aiment pas, il va y avoir de grandes différences et on détruit la seule politique intégrée qu'on a dans l'Union européenne avec cette proposition. Il nous faut à tout prix obtenir plus d'argent du fonds de modernisation. Le fonds de modernisation, c'est 400 milliards. Si on pouvait en récupérer 35%, ça nous permettrait d'avoir l'objectif qu'on avait avant. Merci, Monsieur le Commissaire.
I now go to Miriam Lena Orn. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the context of this debate on the MFF, I warmly welcome the opinion Rex 611. It sets important accents to ensure that Europe acts as a global player in a socially, environmentally and democratically responsible manner. So strengthening the Global Europe instrument in the upcoming MFF is essential for fostering partnerships on an equal footing. However, at the center of this discussion lies the social conditionality of Global Gateway. So the Commission emphasizes high social and environmental standards, and that is essential, of course, but without clear and binding conditions, this remains merely an intention. I therefore reiterate collective bargaining coverage and unrestricted work of trade unions in partner countries must be prerequisites for the allocation of Global Gateway projects. Only then can we ensure that the initiative does not only cater to the economic interests of individual companies, but instead promotes fair and sustainable development for people in partner countries. So in this context, I see the following issue. So there is a lack of transparency on the part of the European Commission regarding the governance of Global Gateway. Civil society participation in the selection and design of projects in partner countries is wholly inadequate. And this inevitably means that economic interests are taken into account more than the sustainable development interests of the population in partner countries. Especially in the current geopolitical dynamic, this is completely unacceptable. So therefore, it must be ensured that trade unions and civil society are systematically and formally involved in the Commission's project identification processes by involvement of the Economic and Social Committee. If we want Global Gateway to become a strong geopolitical instrument with a social component, this must be shaped accordingly.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And now I'd like to go to former President of the Committee, Luca Jair. You have 2 minutes, Luca.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am one of the three rapporteurs on the overall package of the MFF. We have just concluded in the last weeks our draft report after many discussions in-house and with other institutions. And we will go for a discussion and approval in our ECO committee in the beginning of January, and before the end of January in the plenary, it will be probably approved with so many amendments. I have to say, as already Carla, Tavares and others said, the real elephant in the room of this exercise is the volume of the MFF. Nominally 1.26% of GNI. But once we have considered the repayment of Next Generation EU, as you, Commissioner, said, we arrive to 1.14% of the GNI. That compared with the 1.13 of the ongoing one is quite nothing, not forgetting that the ongoing one has been complemented by the Next Generation EU, putting the EU money in this period to 2% of GNI. So now, including in the proposal new strongly reinforced new priorities that are more than needed, competitiveness, defence and strategic autonomy in global Europe, of course, there will be consistent constraint in traditional core priority established by the treaty, cohesion, European Social Fund and CAP. That's the true reality. In this exercise, you, Commissioner and the Commission, we have done an extraordinary exercise of deep and in-depth reform of the structure of the MFF, the largest one since it was established. There are many good things. I do not have the time to underline. Most of them have to be further clarified to become a real opportunity and not a trap. But as already told,
Finish your point. Finish your point.
The most critics are on the mega funds, where it will remain with such a centralization. At least there is a crucial need to double safeguard for partnership principle, place-based approach and participation of all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca. And thank for that. Now I go to Florian Dahlstein. Again, you have 1 minute. Florian, the floor is yours.
Ja, vielen Dank, Herr Präsident. Sehr geehrte Frau Abgeordnete, sehr geehrter Herr Kommissar Serafin, erlauben Sie auch mir, den Platz der Agrarpolitik, der gemeinsamen Agrarpolitik im MFR anzusprechen. Sie wissen, dass die europäischen Landwirtinnen und Landwirte sehr kritisch über diese Vorschläge reflektieren. Das machen wir auch im Kontext der historischen Errungenschaften dieser Politik, der quintessentiell europäischen gemeinsamen Politik. Die gemeinsame Agrarpolitik ist ein Stabilitätsanker in der EU für Betriebsinteressen Großinvestitionen für unsere landwirtschaftlichen Betriebe, für deren Wettbewerbsfähigkeit, aber auch für die ländlichen Räume, für die ländliche Entwicklung. Und das kann auf der einen Seite, das können Umweltprogramme sein, Wissenstransfer, aber auch Betriebsinvestitionen. Auf der anderen Seite aber, wenn wir etwas rauszoomen, sind das Investitionen in unsere Demokratie, in Demografie, auch in den Erhalt von Kultur und Traditionen im ländlichen Raum. Und da kommt auf Sie als Kommission, auch als Mitentscheider in den kommenden Verhandlungen die Aufgabe zu, diese Verantwortung wahrzunehmen und ein gutes Resultat für uns zu bringen. Wir brauchen ein erhöhtes Agrarvolumen und auch die 10% für die ländliche Entwicklung sind ein erster Schritt. Da muss noch mehr kommen. Das ist noch nicht die Rekonstruktion der zweiten Säule und wir möchten damit gemeinsam weiterarbeiten. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Florian. I now go to Andrea Mon, and you have 2 minutes. Yeah, floor is yours. Microphone working?
Okay, yeah, now it's working. Yeah. Grazie Presidente della possibilità di contribuire a questo dibattito sicuramente molto cruciale, tempestivo e complesso, perché se è vero che dal mercato interno dipende l'infrastruttura che ci permette di essere competitivi, il QFP ci permette di sostenere la competitività, una competitività che deve essere appunto sostenibile, quindi deve coniugare crescita e coesione sociale, e questo è fondamentale oggi perché si diceva prima che il contesto è cambiato, sono aumentati gli squilibri tra gli Stati e negli Stati, e quindi è fondamentale oggi assicurare una sicurezza sociale ed economica e un'autonomia all'Unione Europea. Quindi è fondamentale in sostanza oggi generare una capacità del QFP di promuovere quella coesione e quella competitività sostenibile che credo possa essere traguardata attraverso alcune considerazioni che vanno salvaguardate. La prima è sicuramente quella di salvaguardare gli investimenti e i fondi, in primo luogo il Fondo Sociale Europeo Plus, che deve essere mantenuto, distinto e quindi deve essere anche appunto rifinanziato, deve essere data applicazione rigorosa al 14% della spesa sociale nei piani di investimento, e deve essere soprattutto riconosciute quelle condizionalità sociali che permettono appunto di coniugare la crescita con la dimensione sociale. Ed in ultimo va rafforzata, come si diceva anche prima, la partecipazione delle parti sociali nella governance e nei piani, perché è solo così che si ottiene un'efficacia degli investimenti e anche una valutazione degli impatti. Queste sono sostanzialmente alcune considerazioni che credo siano fondamentali oggi per massimizzare il potenziale di uno strumento di cui oggi l'Europa ha davvero grande bisogno. Grazie Presidente.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Andrea. And I now go to Justina Akadan. You have 1 minute. Justina, the floor is yours.
Dzień dobry Panie Komisarzu, Szanowni Goście, Szanowni Państwo. Przede wszystkim społeczeństwo. Nie 14% na wydatki społeczne, a 20%. To jest bardzo istotne, żebyśmy budowali polityki rynku pracy, edukacyjne, włączenie społeczne, walkę z wykluczeniem społecznym. Budowanie potencjału organizacji pozarządowych oraz partnerów społecznych. 2% w Europejskim Funduszu Społecznym przeznaczonym na budowanie dialogu z administracją, dialogu społecznego, dialogu obywatelskiego, żeby budżet trafiał do obywateli. Wzmocnienie komitetów monitorujących tworzonych obligatoryjnie na poziomie regionalnym i na poziomie krajowym wzmocni demokrację. Pamiętajmy, że budżet również ma służyć traktatowym wartościom, a nie tylko kalkulacjom i liczbom. To przede wszystkim budowanie silnego społeczeństwa. Dyskusja o przywróceniu JTF-u czy też finansowanie Społecznego Funduszu Klimatycznego do samego końca okresu programowania to coś, co buduje odporność naszych społeczeństw, i również osadzenie Konwencji Praw Osób z Niepełnosprawnościami w zasadach i kryteriach horyzontalnych. To ważne elementy budowania odporności europejskiego społeczeństwa i wierzę, że mamy w Panu Komisarzu sojusznika w budowaniu silnej Europy. Dziękuję.
Thank you very much, Justina. And I now go to Milena Angelova. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Commissioner, Ms. Tavares. I have three wishes for the European Competitiveness Fund to really be a success story. First of all, we need clear definitions and key concepts to be explicitly and transparently described, and the procedures to be very well elaborated. Then we want also to be part of the strategic stakeholder board, so the EESC should be given a seat. And third, we need for the member states to have equal opportunities and not to have any kind of picking the winners or promoting different technologies, but really to support the value chains for the European champions, and not to forget the SMEs that are a vital part of those value chains. So perhaps incentives for including more SMEs should be given. Thank you very much for this, and good luck to the whole MFF debate.
Thank you, Milena. I forgot, my apologies, but I now give Magdalena Anna Rezgowska 1 minute. The floor is yours, Magdalena.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, President. Thank you, Commissioner. I will speak about water in the next MFF. Europe can no longer treat water as an environmental detail. Water is the foundation of our competitiveness, food security, energy transition, public health and climate resilience. Yet, despite this systemic importance, water investments remain below 3% of the EU budget spending. The cost of inaction is rising fast. Water scarcity already affects a third of EU territory and threatens key value chains from agriculture to semiconductors. But every euro invested in water creates jobs, innovation and resilience. This is why the next MFF must embed water as a strategic priority in the different pillars, and the sustainable use of water shall be a criterion in all EU funds. There is a need to mobilise €300 billion for new MFF as an investment package, a blue transition fund, €255 billion for water services and compliance, where investments in infrastructure are crucial, €35 billion through the competitiveness fund to stimulate private investment and innovation, and €10 billion for prevention of water-related disasters. A coherent framework for all water funding and single access tool for navigating it is needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Magdalena. And I now go to Gonzala Loba Xavier from Portugal. The floor is yours for 1 minute.
Thank you. I will speak in Portuguese. Caro Comissário, cara MEP Carla Tavares, toda a gente sabe que o quadro financeiro plurianual será determinante para enfrentar o principal desafio económico da União, a estagnação da produtividade e o diferencial crescente de competitividade face a outras economias. Para melhorar a produtividade total dos recursos e reforçar a autonomia estratégica da Europa, o MFF deve orientar recursos para investimento em inovação, digitalização, capacidade de força de trabalho e modernização das cadeias de valor industriais. No contexto do semestre europeu, e é nessa qualidade de Presidente do semestre europeu que também lhe falo e de membro do Grupo 1, quero sublinhar que a eficácia das reformas estruturais de um ciclo de governação económica que não seja apenas reativo, mas antes antecipatório. O Comitê tem vindo a desenvolver metodologias de consulta aos Estados-membros mais dinâmicas, com recolha de evidência direta dos parceiros económicos e sociais, permitindo identificar constrangimentos à competitividade, riscos emergentes e falhas na implementação antes de se tornarem estruturais. Exorto o Sr. Comissário a ter em conta as Country-Specific Recommendations e a sociedade civil para as implementar. Estamos aqui para ajudar. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. And the last speaker, Sebastian Rees. You have 1 minute, Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Commissioner, the colleagues, the MFF is, of course, not just a budget plan. It is Europe's most powerful tool to turn ambition into reality. Every euro we allocate decides whether we invest in convergence, innovation and competitiveness, or risk falling behind globally. Cohesion policy is one of the EU's greatest success stories. It has delivered growth, reduced disparities and strengthened trust in the Union. And it stands for real shared prosperity. The current proposal introduces structural changes, which is positive in principle, but it reduces the focus on cohesion in relative terms. And this should be revisited in the negotiations. Another necessity is competitiveness, and I welcome that this Commission has put it at the very heart of the MFF. But the proposed turnover-based EU levy core risks undermining that very goal. It increases costs for businesses without clear policy benefits when we need simplification and fewer burdens to stay globally competitive. Dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, we have the chance and we should aim to make the MFF a true growth instrument, and we here at the EESC stand ready to support those negotiations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping to the time and keeping it so well. So, we now will, now I don't know if Professor Enrico Giovannini is available.
Yes.
He is.
Yes, I'm here.
He's coming through. Okay, the floor is yours. Off you go.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody, and I would like really to thank the President and the EESC for allowing me to give you some thoughts with two different hats. As a former minister of the Letta's and Draghi's governments, I cannot refrain myself from saying that the overall envelope of this budget is, in my view, inadequate to the huge challenges that the European Union has to address. I'm not going to repeat what has been said. I've been following the debate very carefully, but it's absolutely clear that we are in the midst of a huge confrontation with other political and economic blocs. And the European Union needs to invest in its future in several respects, as described by the Letta's and Draghi's reports. Beside the issue of the overall envelope, I'm also representing the Italian Alliance for Sustainable Development, which is the alliance that has been established in Italy with more than 300 organizations, civil society organizations, business organizations, trade unions, in a way, all the dimensions that are represented in the EESC, to implement in Italy and in Europe the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. So let me start from here, recalling that all commissioners received a mission letter from President von der Leyen asking them to work to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals which have been set by 2030. And the Commission is, of course, serving all the EU institutions. Therefore, I think that all EU institutions should really work to achieve those SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Unfortunately, Europe is behind in terms of achievement of goals, as the Eurostat and the ASBIS reports have even recently demonstrated. Therefore, we have to accelerate. And the recent decisions by the Council and also the positions assumed by EU countries in the Sevilla Agreement, but also in the Pact of the Future Summit last year at the UN, the SDG Summit in 2023 at the UN again, to build transformative, accelerative plans in order to achieve the SDGs must be, in my view, fully recognized when the next MFF is designed and allocated. Many European countries have built their national budgets linking all the expenditures to the different SDGs. And my recommendation is to do exactly the same to the European Commission in order to see how much effort is done from a financial point of view to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, it's true that the MFF goes beyond the 2030, but we know that beside this date, we are lagging behind. So it would be important, beside what will happen in 2027 at the UN level to establish the post-2030 agenda, to identify clear targets for the European Union and see how the MFF will be supported to achieve those targets. The second point I would like to make is that in the JRC, the Joint Research Center, following the mandate received by the European Commission for Strategic Foresight Report, we have been working to develop indicators of well-being, actually what we call the sustainable and inclusive well-being, to go beyond GDP. I'm a member of the UN high-level group established a few months ago in the implementation of the Pact of the Future to identify how the world could go beyond GDP. Again, I think that the MFF should clearly link to this effort, trying to show also as a matter of transparency, democratic transparency, to show how the different items of the budget will contribute to the achievement of a better, sustainable and inclusive well-being. Our framework allows also to measure elements like resilience, sustainability, inequality, and so on and so forth. So all the economic, social, environmental, and the institutional dimensions are represented in our measurement framework. And of course, I think that the Joint Research Center should be involved in this work in order to link the MFF and the different components of the sustainable and inclusive well-being. The third point I would like to make is related to what other speakers have clearly said before, and is about the involvement of the civil society in decision-making. Again, EU countries have committed themselves at the OECD and the Council of Europe recent commitments to do that. And I think that there is a quite large space of improvement because beside the classical consultations that are carried out and the great work done by EESC, I think that especially at national level, there is a lot of work to do. And this is an issue that matters also for the European institutions. European institutions cannot just leave individual countries to do whatever they wish and then complain correctly on the fact that democracy is not fully implemented. So my third recommendation from this point of view is to identify, with the help of EESC, new ways at European and national levels of consultation, involvement, discussion, and the 2 points that I made before in terms of achievement and targets and indicators could help. My last point, President, I know that I'm rightly constrained in terms of time, is about the regional dimension of the European policies and also the allocation of the MFF. I know very well that this is a very contentious issue. There are discussions on how to balance the need to fix clear objectives at national level, like it was done with the Next Generation EU, and the power, as we call it in this way, of regional authorities and communities at local level to decide, especially for the cohesion policy. We know from several studies that cohesion, social cohesion, is highly at risk in European countries. And this has a clear feedback loop on the trust on institutions and therefore also on the trust on EU institutions. We have recently, actually yesterday, released a study on the way in which especially young generations think and value the European institutions. And it's quite clear that they still believe in the European dream, if I may say so, but the problem lies in the behavior and thinking of adults and old people, which are much less open and let's say committed to the European targets. Therefore, and I stop here, I think that the involvement of local communities, regional institutions could help in establishing and strengthening the relationships between EU institutions and people, according to the points that I tried to make before. And beside the overall envelope of the budget, I think that there are several ways to improve the current proposal to make it more targeted to sustainable development goals and targets, better interpretable in terms of policy transparency, and also in terms of democratic support through the involvement of local and regional and city communities on the implementation of European policies. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you sincerely, Enrico, and that's a really comprehensive presentation. Now, we will move quickly to some conclusions, and I want a response from MEP Ms. Travers, Carla Tavares, and the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, dear members. Thanks for your contributions, for this moment of reflections between us. We have a lot of work in the next months in the MFF, and I think we changed some points, some important points. The involvement of civil society. I was a lucky woman because I was mayor during 12 years in a big city near Lisbon, and I know very well if you want to be successful in the MFF or in RRF. We need to have the NGOs and civil society. We need to have the level of the regions and the level of local authorities. Because in the other way, it's much more difficult to be successful in these all areas. And in the end, the cohesion is the soul of the European. The solidarity, it's our big ADN in the Union. But at the same time, of course, we have new challenges. We need to talk about competitiveness, we need to talk about security, we need to talk about defense, and I think it's impossible to work in the next MFF with the same status quo that we have in the last years. So this is the big challenge that I think the Parliament have in hands, the Commission, the Council, and we need to try, still work together to, in the end, to be possible. Of course, we have a lot of concerns in the Parliament with national and regional plans, with agriculture policy, with the cohesion. We know our position was very clear after the presentation of the proposal by the Commission. And we think we have a long road to move during the last months, but in the end, the most important is our citizens. So, but it's impossible. I think it's a very difficult exercise just to look to the cohesion and agriculture, but don't look at the same moment to the competitiveness and the other areas. And the European citizens don't have competitiveness if they don't have cohesion, and they don't have cohesion if they don't have competitiveness. So this is the big challenge that all of us have in the middle of the room to the next months. And of course, Parliament will be always available to talk with committee, to receive your contributions, and to be present, of course, in the other meetings that you will have in the next months. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carla. And finally, to Commissioner Serafin, you may contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have not enough time to answer to all the questions and all the points which were raised during the debate. I will concentrate only on 4. The first one was the size. And here what I would like to say that when we think about the future MFF, we should think, yes, also on what we have in the budget, and we have 1.26% of GNI, as has been already mentioned. Just to remind you, that the budget that we have just agreed for the year 2026, it is 1%. But of course, we still have RRF, but just to put maybe facts on the table. But I think we should also remember that in that future MFF we have also elements that would allow us to use financial firepower of the EU budget while not offering grants. And in the context of the national and regional partnership plans, we talk about the Catalyst programme, 150 billion euros of loans. In the context of Ukraine, we talk about Ukraine facility, 100 billion euros over and above the ceiling of the future MFF, part of it in the forms of grants, part of it in the forms of loans. We also have a crisis mechanism, just in case of severe crisis. In the current MFF we have been using Article 122. In the future we'll be able, if the Member States agree, to use the crisis mechanism. But overall, of course, I appreciate your comments on the size. I have to tell you that it's good to hear that the budget is not big enough. It's not the message which I get from the Council. When I go to the Council, the message which I receive is completely different. On the CAP, two comments. First of all, I think that with respect to the income support, the logic of our proposal is the following. We take year 2027 and in nominal terms we guarantee until the end of 2033 that the level of nominal support is preserved, income support for farmers. On top of that, we have the target of 10% for the rural development investments. Of course, it is for the regional and national authorities to decide how much is going to be invested in the rural areas. 10% is the floor. It is not the ceiling. But when it comes, and here we take very seriously also the concern of the single market and the level playing field on the single markets. There are some instruments in the common agriculture policy that cannot be topped up, that are at the same time the floor and the ceiling. And here I refer to the area payments, and I refer also to payments coupled with production. So here we talk about both the floor and the ceiling. Yes, indeed, there is certain flexibility when it comes for the agro-environmental measures, when it comes to the LEADER program, when it comes to the support for young farmers. That is something which is there. There is a space for the regions and for the Member States to decide. Third area, own resources, also very shortly. There were questions mostly about core. When we were drafting that proposal, and I think it's a genuine question, whether when thinking about own resources we should be thinking only about the households, or whether we should also expect the corporate sector to contribute to financing the EU budget. And we believe that the big companies, they are beneficiaries of the single market. And whether the core will have an impact on the competitiveness of European companies, let me make just 2 points. First of all, it is not a levy which is proposed for 99% of European companies are excluded. We talk only about the companies with a turnout above 100 million euros. And for those companies, the levy is 100,000 euros. But we don't talk about the companies which produce in Europe. We talk about companies which make profit which sell on the single European market. To the German minister I said, we don't talk only about Volkswagen, we also talk about the BYD. And we also talk about the digital companies. And we also talk about the financial sector. And here, when it comes to the digital taxation, personally, I have never been hiding the fact I'm a supporter of the digital tax. But we are also aware, and you are aware, that for the digital tax to be effective, the best way would be to have an agreement at the global level. I was told also by my colleagues in the Commission that those discussions are still ongoing on the global level. This was a declaration adopted in the G7 context in June, I think it was in June. But I believe that we should not forget about the digital taxation. And really one last comment. It's about the governance. That issue was raised not only in the context of the civil society, but overall. I think this is going to be still one of the questions to be debated, both the governance at the national level and at the European level. At the national level, I didn't mention, but if you look into the national and regional partnership regulation, there is a role for the civil society also at the phase of design of the programs. When it comes to the European level, the debates will be there, the role of the Commission, the role of the Parliament, the role of the Council. This is one of the areas that has been already put on the table also in the European Parliament. I will stop here. Thank you very much for all the contributions. We will continue as the Commission to follow your work leading to the adoption of the opinion, and we stand ready to, if there are any questions, issues, we stand ready also to address them. Thank you.
Listen, thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you very much, Carlo and Enrico. Giovannini. Members, I think the game is on. Those of you who spoke, Elena, President of ECHO, no responsibility at all for you. But for the rest of all of you, no responsibility, or is there? It's a major, major issue. And I think we are very lucky to have such a debate here, and the Commissioner to give his time so generously for Carla and for Enrico. So I'm going to leave you for a moment. I'm going to give you in the capable of hands of Maria to continue with the opinions. And I, as Arnie Schwarzenegger said, I will be back. So see you in a moment. Okay. Maria, off you go.